I still to this day have coaches and mentors in different facets of my life, because I don't believe that it has to be somebody specific to salon ownership or specific to the hair industry.
That's really
good.
And
I think that sometimes, somebody may not have access to somebody that can help them see themselves or what have you in the industry, but there's somebody that you look up to.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another Rare One podcast.
What's up?
I'm Adelaide.
And I'm Essence.
Yes, and today we are super excited to talk about just some ways that stylists can grow. Yeah. Just give a little bit of what we know about this. So, Essence, what do you think is the pinnacle, characteristic that a stylist needs in order to just begin facilitating this process to grow?
I feel like in order to grow, you have to be humble enough to recognize you don't know everything.
Praise the Lord. Okay? Praise the Lord.
You have to, I think that one of the biggest ways that I was able to grow was from gleaning from other people who had already got to a place that I saw myself at.
Yeah.
But in order for me to continue to learn from them, it put me in a position of having to be humble. You know what I mean? Because I think sometimes, and this is for me, I'm only speaking for myself, there are times where I'll go to somebody and I want their results, but there's still something in me resisting doing a new thing.
Oh, that's good. Say it again for the people in the back.
I want new results, but there's still a resistance within me to do a new thing. Yeah. And so, I think what typically happens is that when people start looking at their lives or even looking at where they're at in their career as a stylist and recognizing I feel like I'm going in circles. Yeah. I feel like, I've been in the same place for the last 5 years, and I really do want to see something change within my dynamic, but I don't necessarily know what I need to do. And I think that's the first thing is recognizing I don't necessarily like my results and I do want something else, but then that means you have to be open for someone to teach you. Yeah.
And in that openness for somebody to teach you, you have to know what you need to learn. Sorry about that. Mm-hmm. You have to know what you need to learn from someone and then actually do what they say or what they might recommend, especially if you know your way is not working.
Right.
And that does require humility, and it requires trust, and it requires a little bit of faith for sure, because you don't know if you're going to get the result that you want, but you know that you don't want the result that you've been having.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is 100%. Another, so one, yes, we need to humble ourselves. And two, it's really to be able to put ourselves in position to submit to the wisdom of someone that we respect, that has a result that we like and has similar core values than us, because you don't want to just go to someone random and be like, I want to get your result. And then they do it in a way that doesn't match your character, but you just want their result. So it's really there's a bigger process. What would you say to that part? Because I think it's easy to look on Instagram and be like, oh, that's the kind of stylist that that's the kind of work I want to be able to perform. But if you don't even get to see the character of the person, how easy or not easy would that be to even attempt to submit to?
Yeah, I can only speak from my experience. And I just know that, when I started to look for people to assist me in getting to another place in my business or I was looking at all things. Yeah. I wasn't just looking okay, they have a bomb brand. Or it was okay, let me talk to them and let me just figure out, is this a match to where I can grow from them,
Yes.
And I definitely found that, I think, in the first few years of business, I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody even just in business that could help me understand, okay, what am I doing that could be improved? You know, not necessarily wrong. I mean, sometimes you're doing something wrong, and there's other things. It's like you don't know everything, right? And so I think that's where I started to travel and go to like conventions and meet people who, you know, I wouldn't meet in Phoenix.
Yeah.
You know, there was not many people, even to this day, that were doing natural hair in Arizona. And so it was like, it required me to invest in myself and take a trip. And it required me to get out of the space of fear and ask.
Yeah.
Like, will you mentor me? You know, do you have capacity? And that was very courageous for me, because I really, you know, I seen people and I just like, they ain't got time.
Yeah.
You know, they ain't gonna help me, you know. And I think that was a mindset that I had to completely overcome, because I would have still been in the same place.
That is so good. When you get in the process and the posture of asking for help consistently, not to the point where somebody enables you, but somebody empowers you enough to like continue to do the work. It's okay if you fail, but it's just like fail hard, like not to the point where everything takes a hit, but like just as much as you're going to go as hard if you want the success, if you want the growth. It's okay if it doesn't work, like just try again. But being humble enough to ask for that help is gigantic. And it might be different people that help you with different things, but it's a consistent like muscle that you have to work to really get into a space where you can just receive whatever that wisdom is. That's really big.
Yeah, I remember one of my first like real life mentors, and at that time he owned 2 salons, and I remember, like I said, I was kind of afraid to reach out to him, but I reached out to him, and he was just like so open and gracious.
Yeah.
But I think some of the reason why he was because he already seen traction.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
And I think, you know, there are sometimes people, they want a mentor and they want somebody to help them, but they really don't want nobody to help them. It's like, you just want to just have somebody pour all the stuff into you, and then you have no, you know what I'm saying? No, you're not
no
trying
evidence.
to do anything.
Yeah.
You don't have no evidence of, like, I believe that in order for you to attract a very good mentor, you have to have some traction to show like, okay, I'm not going to be wasting my time.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, especially with somebody who is a business person and not only just has a business or a few businesses, they have family, they got their own lives. So if they're going to take any time out of their day, it's because it's somebody who that they believe values their time and is actually going to do what they're instructing.
Yeah. And just because you have people come to your salon does not always mean you're a good canvas or you're a good vessel to always pour into. So it's really just making sure, like, again, as we spoke before, is your motivation right? Like, am I doing some of the work on my own that I know how to do to be able to build that traction? Or are they going to be casting their pearls to swine? Don't be swine. Don't be swine. Okay. You want to be some good ground to sow into. So that's really checking yourself, are you good soil to sow into? And if you don't feel like you're 100% there, well, what is that going to take?
Yeah.
So yes, it's absolutely being humble enough, but can you be accountable? Can you keep your word? Are you going to do what you say you're going to do? If somebody comes along and be like, I need you to read these 2 books to help you with finances or to help you with, even affirmations. Like, are you going to read them? And then if there's activities in the book, are you going to do them? Like, are you going to keep your word? Can you be even accountable to doing this work? What would you say to that?
No, I'm just smiling because, that was the next place I was going to go because I think sometimes when we're thinking about growing as stylists, we're thinking about the hands-on, the practicality of, okay, what do I need to do to market? And it's like, no, you don't really understand that your business will only grow to the extent that you do as a person, meaning if a book is something that is recommended, it's because I need to grow you as an individual. I need to grow you as a leader, because some of the reason why your business has not grown is because maybe you don't necessarily see all the things that you don't necessarily think about when it comes to business. It's like, okay, I have 4 chairs, I just need to get some stylists. I remember when I first opened a salon, it was just me.
Yeah.
And 3 empty chairs. I think I have 4 chairs. Me and 3 empty chairs. And I wanted stylists. I didn't know how to necessarily attract stylists.
Yeah.
But what I in turn learned in time is I had to grow me.
Yeah.
Am I even in a position of leadership?
Yeah.
Do I even have boundaries when I do attract people to come in?
Yes.
And so I didn't know that so much of that wasn't going to happen until I started to become a leader, really hold myself accountable to a whole nother standard. And even though I had standards for myself, there were certain things that when it came to business, I didn't know. And I think there are a lot of stylists that know the practical work.
Yeah.
I know the parting. I know the braiding. I know the twisting. But why is it that you haven't been able to have sustainable growth?
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so much of that is more of a character issue. So much of it is a leadership issue. There's one thing I always used to say is salon ownership is leadership.
Yeah. 100%.
So you can have a building and you can have chairs, but in order for you to have stylists that, are going to be there and they're going to be consistent, it really has to do with how they see you.
Yeah. It's a full reflection of your leadership.
Yeah.
So if there's chaos, if there is mistrust, if there is inconsistent culture, there is all of those things that reside in you as a leader that you project and allow if you don't have boundaries, if you don't communicate, if you don't maintain a standard, if you don't exemplify that standard in everything you do, you're going to attract people that consistently reflect that in you. And it's either an opportunity to isolate yourself, which a lot of people do, when they don't know exactly how to be accountable or address those things, or it's an opportunity to say, let me refine those things in myself, reconfigure that standard in me so that I can, begin to communicate and implement those things in my environment and or attract different people, or it's just going to keep going until it spirals negatively, unfortunately. And that's what we don't want you to get to. So we want to really make sure that these keys are hidden. So if you need to take notes, okay?
For sure. And I think, when it comes to business ownership or just growing into a business, there are conversations that you're not going to just have with your friends. You're not just going to have with your family members.
Yes.
And so what books did for me was to open me up to conversations that I couldn't have with anybody because they didn't know to have these conversations. Yeah. And so it helped me to grow. And I think another area of growth is being able to have hard conversations.
Yes.
Because if you have an unwillingness to have whatever conversation, whether it's with a client, whether it's with a stylist, whether it was with a team member, whatever the case may be, you have a ceiling to how far you can grow.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's what my mentor, he recommended some books on leadership. And so I was like, okay, cool. But if you're not in a place where you understand, like, well, what does this have to do with salon ownership?
It has everything to do with salon ownership.
Everything. And so, yeah, I definitely feel that, having a mentor and listening to what was recommended and understanding, like, I just have to trust this process was really what helped me get to another level. Is just the submission of, okay, you're completely somewhere that I'm not and I want to be. Yeah. So whatever you're recommending, whatever the prescription is, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned like how to maintain those boundaries, and sometimes those boundaries reflect immediate communication, like at all times. When you do want to grow, if you don't incorporate boundaries into not just your business but for yourself, it's going to be really hard to elevate because there's going to be access from so many different angles. People think they can't talk to you any type of way. Your friends are going to be like, well, if I was you, you should do this. And they don't own nothing or do nothing within your industry. If you don't maintain the boundary of, I'm not going to let you speak into what I got to do because you don't have any authority there, then you might be doing things that are out of line, really. So as Essence mentioned, like why it's so important to maintain those boundaries, I think it'll be wise for us to communicate what some of those boundaries look like. So she talked about, okay, we're going to establish that communication line between our friends, our family. what other boundaries outside of just like clients would you recommend that somebody essentially like incorporate into their lives so that it can be super, super clear, like you can't come, or that thing can't come?
Hopefully I understand your question, but I mean, I think it's really just knowing what you have capacity for in your own personal life.
Yes.
Because however you
That's
operate,
what I was looking for, by the way.
however you operate in your personal life it's going to be a direct reflection.
Yes.
You can't, they say that the way you do one thing is the way that you do everything.
everything.
So if you don't necessarily know how to say no, and you don't know what you have capacity for, and you allow people to continue to run over you, well, it's going to be the same way in your business. And so if you're unwilling to have those conversations and or confrontations with people or whatever the case is, it's going to show up in your business and it's going to stunt your growth because you have to be able, the epitome or the essence of a leader is a decision maker. And a decision maker means that you have to have conversations. You have to make a decision. You can't run from and avoid conversations and situations because it is going to hinder your growth. And so I would say recognize in your life right now where are the areas in your personal life first where you need to address, confront, speak to situations, because when you start practicing that muscle in your personal life, you will be able to do it in your business.
It will translate so like seamlessly because again, you do have that muscle memory, you do have that practice. And it won't feel like, again, you're out of body, out of character. So then there's like congruency and consistency that you get to operate into. I would definitely say like establishing policies, procedure, like as Essence was saying, how you do one thing. Like if you know that taking calls after business hours affects your mental health, like don't take calls after business hours, and just communicate that. But then keep your word. Don't take them. Be consistent in them and not always feel guilty about, what somebody is trying to expect of you outside of what those boundaries are. And I know it's hard, and it's not hard to do it and be kind. You don't have to be angry and disrespectful and everything to everyone. But it's really having those boundaries and keeping your word are like hand in hand. Yeah, they really are.
Well, I think that's where a mentor can really come into play, because I think a mentor is a good one is going to cause you to be self-aware. Yeah. Because if you're not self-aware, how will you begin to do the things?
Perfect segue. What I was thinking,
It's like, how will you begin to make the necessary changes if you don't even know what changes need to be made within yourself first? And so I think bouncing, if you're sharing your story with somebody who's been there and done that, they're able to recognize like, oh, you have some insecurity in this area, or you have an avoidant issue in this area, or you don't follow through in this area. And so them helping you see yourself now can hold you accountable to whatever it is that you need to do. And hopefully in time, you can start being self-aware for yourself and hold yourself accountable to the things that need to be done. But I think that's where, a mentor comes into, play, is because they're able to see it from a different perspective on the outside looking in. And it's just like, oh, I see exactly why your business is the way it is. It's your mind. It's how you're thinking, and how you're thinking dictates how you are behaving. And therefore it brings about what you're beholding. It brings about your results. And so if we can get back to the mindset of, okay, why do I do certain things? Like when you came in with certain systems, I didn't even realize how freeing it would be. And these were things that never entered my mind. They never even entered my mind, but it forced me to grow in a way that I didn't even know was even possible, but I had to be exposed to it.
And what you just said was, when I came in with certain systems, there was an openness that you had toward those systems. So you trusted me to teach you certain things because you were open to it, and vice versa. It is imperative that if you want to grow, you have to be open. You have to be teachable. If you come in, I don't know anybody like who is like, oh, you know, they're a master at this, but they can't receive no word. You can't tell them nothing. I'm like, their success will only last for so long, because everything continues to grow, everything changes. And so if you're not open to any type of change, or seeing or allowing somebody to see any kind of blind spot, it's going to be really, really, really hard to incorporate those things for a long period of time. You have to be open. You have to be teachable. It doesn't matter how old you are either, you know. Everybody has the capacity to share some wisdom, and it's just about how open you're going to be to receive it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a responsibility not only to work on your own personal growth, but also ask yourself, how can I also pour out? Yes. So it's like, yes, I need to look for somebody to pour into me, but then I also need to find, you know, am I in position, and is there a way that I can give? Because I think that there is the reaping and the sowing. Yeah. And I say that to say that, you know, I still to this day have coaches and mentors in different facets of my life, because I don't believe that it has to be somebody specific to salon ownership or specific to the hair industry. That's really good. And I think that sometimes, you know, somebody may not have access to somebody that can help them see themselves or what have you in the industry, but there's somebody that you look up to that can help you become a better person. Yeah. And in that becoming a better person, then from that, you're going to be able to grow in any aspect of your life that you're trying to grow in. And so how would you recommend somebody like looking for somebody to help them?
So I'll just share briefly. When I first started to operate the salon 5 years ago, I remember this sense of overwhelm, like, oh my gosh, I have to carry this. Like, I'm like, I got to carry this mantle, and I don't know exactly how to do it. And one thing I did immediately was, okay, God, show me what I can do, and show me what I need somebody else to help me do. And once I submitted to that, like, to that space, it felt like he was just like bringing everything that I need. But I had to submit to their authority in that thing. So, yes, I like numbers. Yes, I can do math, simple math. I can add, you know, what's coming in and what's going out. But to have an accountant that knows how to do that and trust that they know what they're doing, not to the extent that they can't communicate it to me, but if they can break it down. But I had to literally have this level of, I trust that somebody knows what they're doing and I don't know what I'm doing. So I need to be able to extend that trust to them, be transparent with them, be very clear with them, so that they know my goals. And then they know how to operate within, like, how we run our business. Right. And so it's really just, as you were saying before, like asking for help in other areas. It helped me to understand, oh, wait, I want to have integrity with numbers, not just have integrity in like the styles that I do, but I'm like, I don't have to gouge somebody right now. I want to be able to have a space where I can grow. They can show me how to do that. I can take their recommendation. And if it doesn't fit the culture here, I can communicate that in a way that doesn't diminish their authority and wisdom in that area, but help incorporate the wisdom and vision that we essentially have. So it's really like looking for people who are experts in those other things. I had to really, I feel like taking classes from other people, that also helped too, because I'm like, oh, well, how does this kind of scenario work in your environment? And then they can just share their story, and you can really gain wisdom from that, because you know that, oh, this happens across the country. If I get a client that comes in and that's their expectation, now I have a different way of communicating to them, so that it's not just this centered vision, this view on it has to be the way that we do it and only we do it. So it's really just incorporating like yes, maintaining that teachability and being open to just somebody's wisdom and authority in the area that they are in. Mm-hmm. So if somebody is better at systems, if somebody is better at accounting, if somebody's better at, I guess, hospitality, can I trust that they're that good at that and like start to learn and incorporate some of those things? So yeah, that would just be my advice on like how to start being teachable.
I think also too is like sometimes people feel like they don't know anybody. Yeah. And I think obviously, you know, if you don't know anybody, I mean, obviously you have books and you have podcasts and you have influencers that you can learn from, and I think you can start there. Yeah. The other thing is, if you already have clientele, you would be amazed at how much wealth is in your clientele. Yeah. And there may be people right now who have what you need, and you just have to be able to discern who those people are. And I think that comes from building relationship. Yes. Because, you know, from your chair, God may be doing a whole lot, but how will that even happen if you're not in a place of building that relationship? And I want to caution and just say that, you know, obviously you don't want to tell everything to everybody, right? But there are times where you just feel a resonance with people. You feel, you know, some sort of just alignment. Yeah. And, you know, in those times, it's like, you know, find out what they do. Find out what they're good at. You never know how they may be able to. I mean, we hold products from somebody who was a client. Yeah. She was a client first. And you know, and now her products are in the salon. And so, you know, but if those conversations aren't had, you just never know how somebody can really help you get to another level. Yeah. And the gold mine is right in your chair.
Yeah. Yeah. And discernment is essential. It is absolutely essential. We have so many amazing relationships that helped us grow in different areas because of that factor. And it was, I think, Essence, you really taught me, I would just say along the way, like, this is God's thing. This is not our thing. So to covet something in a way that becomes like secretive and almost like, I'm going to have so much pride about it. And I can't be even a little open and transparent about like what I do need and what I do want with safe people. I think that helped free me from the idea that nobody, like there's less people out to get me and to steal from me than there are people who are just like waiting for you to basically like ask for help where they get to exercise their gifts as well. It's a whole different posture of thinking somebody's going to take something from you versus like what you can learn to be able to give.
If you are looking to achieve flawless styles like this right here, these parts, they're just crisp, we're getting through it, you need to order you a pack of our precision parting combs. What they're gonna help you do is to braid and to part with speed and with ease. Many times stylists are losing time because they're parting over and over again. They're second guessing themselves because maybe the tools they're working with aren't the best. So we wanna help you with that. Go ahead and go to rareessenceacademy.com/combs and get your precision parting combs. Now back to our podcast.
Yeah. I think that's really good because I do feel like there is this thing that's, you know, that people just think like, I can't tell anybody anything. Move in silence. And like, there's a time and place for that. Yeah. But also understanding if you're moving in silence so much so that you are blocking yourself from the doors that God wants to open to you, you're just going to go about it just it's just going to be a longer process and an unnecessary process, and you'll tend to overwork yourself in areas where you didn't even have to.
You did not have to.
And so I think that, you know, again, the word is discernment. There are people that have the keys to the doors that need to be unlocked for you, but they can only give you those keys if the conversations are had, if the openness is had. And so I think that that's where, you know, whether they're in your chair, they're not in your chair, if they're in your family, or if they're in your, you know, you have to start looking for those opportunities. And as we always say, prayer, I think, is key. It's just like, God, help me open my eyes up to see, you know, who it is that you are assigning to me. Who are my destiny helpers? Yeah. You know, and I believe that he'll send those.
Yeah, he absolutely will. Like we are evidence that you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to face every single issue by yourself. And that if we have that community to essentially not become so dependent that we don't do our work, because we have to do our work, but that we can just like be able to lean on to have more capacity to do that work. I think that we'll just be further along, but it requires a level of humility in us every single day. Like, it's not something that you just do one time. We have to do it in different ways, like every single day.
Yeah.
There's things we have to share with each other to build trust with each other, that you'll have to eventually be vulnerable with somebody who is leading you, who is guiding you, because all the things work together. So if you're dealing with something that's catastrophic in your life, or if you're dealing with trauma in your life and you don't communicate that to the person that's actually helping you, and it's impacting your ability to receive or actually do the work because you might be triggered, if you don't communicate those things consistently, then it can become a barrier for you to be able to learn and grow. When I say we have to operate this every single day, there's still things every day. I'm like, I have to tell Essence, because this can impact if she says something to me and I'm over here crying and, you know, I'm not able to do what she might be recommending. Like, we literally have to operate in it every single day. But the more you operate in it, the kind of easier it gets. And then you get to a point where I feel like we are now. It's like, we can't hold anything back from each other, because we know that can impact our growth together.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit earlier about giving.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're talking about mentorship, and mentorship is a lot more about receiving.
Yeah.
But what do you feel like is, I guess, the power in giving? Because, you know, sometimes people, they don't even think about that. And it could be given from many different aspects.
Yeah.
But, you know, one thing that you implemented in the salon, which I love, was just giving back to, you know, the less fortunate in areas, you know. And so the giving obviously can be in many different areas. It could be pouring into another stylist. It could be, you know, giving back to the community. But can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I love that question, because I think that it's something that it can be, like, if done correctly, it can bless your life so much. The space that God really, like, I feel like carved out in me in the recent years is that I want to give without expectation of anything in return. I don't know whatever that giving is going to yield, and I don't really care, as long as, like, God give me the ability to serve. If I can serve, whether it's stylists, whether it's, we have a big population of, like, homeless people in our community. And I think that there was just a point where I'm like, we could be the answer. Instead of shooing them or, you know, frowning our noses up at them. It's just like, no, there's a need. They need water. Can we just give them some water? They need sanitary items. They need a Band-Aid sometimes. Like, can we just be a part of the answer, and we can get our community involved with it. And there's nothing that they need to do in return for us. The same with how we host trainings in our salon, or I'm like, I want to make the stylist to be at the level I'm at or more, because I think that they will then be able to sow that seed to somebody else. And I'm like, if we could just build them up, I'm like, ask me any question. It does not matter. I will show you the trick. I will show you whatever it is, the tool that I need, because I also believe that that's God's way of emptying us out to fill us back up.
I was waiting, but go ahead.
I really believe that that's his way. And I've noticed that the more I pour out of the things that I feel like he's gifted me with, if I give away all the things, he just keeps filling me up with other things. Like, oh, now you have capacity to write a book. Now you have capacity to speak. Now you have capacity to build this system. But you didn't have capacity if you were coveting the gift that he gave to you just because you thought somebody was going to steal it.
Listen, are you a hoarder?
Are you a hoarder?
Are you a creative hoarder?
I love this.
No, I man, everything you said is just so resonating. I agree. I think that, you know, in order to receive, we have to pour out. And I think that sometimes there's a stinginess, and sometimes the stinginess is not necessarily for selfish reasons. It could be because of trauma, and it could be because of fear. It could be because of, I've had stylists tell me like, well, they don't even want to post their hairstyles because they don't want somebody else to steal their hairstyles. Let me just speak to that really quick.
Jesus.
And the only reason I would speak to that is because some of you may know and some of you don't know. So I had one of the first viral natural hairstyles. This is like right around the time Instagram really started popping. Yeah. And so my hairstyle was in Essence. And before you knew it, it was on everybody's flyers, business cards, salon, billboards. I mean, this hairstyle was everywhere. And we're not just talking about nationally. We're talking internationally. This hairstyle took off. And at first, there was a part of me that was just like, oh my gosh, I wish, I had watermarked it. Well, number one, this was like my first business, my first photo shoot. So I didn't know anything about like how things could blow up. And mind you, this is before things really was taking off and being viral. So I could not get ahead of it. Yeah. Right. And so I realized like, well, it is what it is. Like the only thing I can do now is live up to the celebrity of my hairstyle.
So good.
What I need to do is it is what it is. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. And what do I mean by that? There are stylists that they're so concerned about stuff being stolen that nobody will ever see it. Yeah. I'd rather be able to say, my hairstyle's all over the world. I'd rather be able to say that it was in Essence than to say that I have these bomb creations in Glendale, Arizona that are just in my sketchbook, that are just in my phone.
And inspired no one.
Come on. So how you going to grow if you're trying to hoard? How are you going to grow if you're trying to keep everything to yourself? We have to get past the fear, because on the other side of that is recognizing like this is how it works. Yeah. The only way that your name is going to go down in history, or like you have to make a mark, and making a mark means it has to be seen. Yeah. You can't hide. So I feel like that is like such a key to growth, is the giving, and giving in so many different ways,
Giving without expectation of even returning. I mean, even getting back the same thing that you gave. Like, our goal is to pour out. I tell every single stylist that I train, I want you to be better than me. I want to give you tools that you start to recognize. What are your hands doing? What is your posture? What is your heart saying? What is your head saying? Like, start looking at those things, because again, I'm emptying myself out, because that's not going to be the gift that sustains me for the rest of my life. It's not. I don't believe that that's how God designed it to be for me. And so I'm like, if I want to be able to speak one day, if I want to be able to travel and, write books and, be able to retire, all those things, I have to give it all away so that I'm empty enough for God to be like, now I can trust you with another gift. I believe that is the essence of the parable of the sower. Give me 5, God. Right. Let me multiply those. Right. I don't want to be the one to bury my gift. Yeah. I really don't. And I don't want to encourage anybody to do it either by not sharing it, by not like, I'm like, if you know something, tell somebody. Mm-hmm. If you have wisdom in it, tell somebody. Yeah. Share it. Let somebody else have that wisdom over and over and over again, so that you can be empty enough to do something else. Yeah. I don't want to be a stylist, and I will say this very clearly. I don't want to be a stylist till I'm 50. There's no shade to somebody doing it until they're 50. I just know that that's not what God called for me. So I'm going to give everything I got now. I can't wait to be empty. I'm looking forward to that emptiness, to be able to say, oh my God, I get to do the next thing. And I want y'all to be able to have evidence in us. So we gonna keep pouring it out.
Yeah, I love it. And so while you were talking, the scripture came to mind, but I actually wanted to like read it like verbatim. So this is the Amplified version. It says, he who is faithful in a very little thing is also faithful in much. And he who is dishonest in a very little thing is also dishonest in much. Yeah. Therefore, if you have not been faithful in the use of earthly wealth, who will entrust you with true riches? Yeah. And I think it really does speak to, I believe that we are all blessed with many gifts, but it's based on how faithful are you over this first gift. So now I can give time and expression and grace for this next gift. Yeah. And the gift is forgiving. Yeah. And as you give, this is what brings about growth, because now he can multiply it.
Come on.
Attention all natural hairstylists. Are you ready to perfect your techniques and create flawless styles? Our online courses are here to help you with creativity, speed, and precision. We offer specialized courses in braiding, locking, and twisting, available to you 24/7 so you can learn at your own pace, anywhere, anytime. You'll be guided by industry leaders with over 30 years of experience, and we'll break down every detail, providing start to finish instructions so there'll be no guesswork. Gain the skills to become a confident and successful stylist and start earning what you deserve. Enroll today at rareessenceacademy.com and transform your styling skills.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with it. Like, I could not necessarily, if I had not given and sold myself out essentially to hairstyling and like I'm in this thing.
Yep.
I don't think that teaching.
The same thing. I love it. Yeah.
I don't think that because he's here. Okay.
Yes, Lord.
Because I don't think that teaching would have been able to have happened because you can't skip steps. And so sometimes we want to accelerate when we're not there yet. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be there, but it's in timing. If I was trying to jump to being a teacher when nobody had even known how faithful I had been over hairstyling, like who would even want to come to my trainings?
Right.
And so, and furthermore, going from training into coaching, you know, like I had to have a track record first to even tell a hairstylist, I know how I can help you. I can see your situation. I know exactly what you need to do. And, you know, follow me, like, trust me on this, you know? And so we have to go through the process of growth. And so sometimes it's like a child, you know, Aria, your daughter, I'm sure she'd be trying to put your shoes on.
Yeah. And honey, no, you're going to fall. You're going to bust your face trying to be outside of where you're supposed to be at that moment. And oh my goodness, I have learned so well, like, thank you, God, for this moment, for what you're preparing me for today.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm in expectation that you're going to do it later on.
Right.
But I'm like, am I equipped to perform what I need to perform today, where you can trust me today with what I have? Girl, that was, when I say everything, it just makes us so excited because it's just like, I see the fruit in not skipping steps. Yeah. But it's really hard for somebody to receive. That's 10 steps ahead. Let's backtrack. Let's stay right here so that you can be ready for that. Because if you get that, that's going to feel like a curse.
Yes.
And that's not going to feel like a blessing. And then you're going to be mad at me because you think that I set you up to fail, when I really was trying to get you to understand that if you would just be a good steward over what this is right now, maximize, refine, put everything you have into this gift to set you up for later. Yeah,
it's like the wax on, wax off. It's like, I know you want to be doing all these moves. You know, I know you want to, even if you relate it to hairstyle, I know you want to start doing all these styles, but let's perfect these cornrows. Let's perfect these parts. If we can master the basics and we can be patient in that process, the growth is naturally going to come. Yeah. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. And and I think even sometimes, even as coaches and as mentors, like, yes, we can tell you about a whole bunch of stuff because we've been to a whole lot of places. We can tell you about teaching and we can tell you about traveling and all the stuff that we've done, but you're not there yet. And us giving you that doesn't benefit you.
It sure does not.
So in the same way, it's just like, okay, teach me to be patient with my process and how to master whatever basic. What are the basics that I need to master right now in the season that I'm in as a stylist? And some of it is our attitudes, our mindsets, our perspectives, our motivations. Yeah. Why do I want a large following? Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I think that when we start to allow God to work on those areas, the growth comes.
Yeah. It's, God, what can you trust me with today? Mm-hmm. What can I be responsible over today so I can be a good steward over that? And then when you are ready for me to increase, I'll be ready to handle it. When you're ready for me to increase, it's so crazy. I will never forget, like, and this relates to something outside of hair, but I remember when God was pushing me out of an apartment. It was a push. It was a shove. I'm like, Essence, I feel like I have to move. I don't understand what is going on. And it was, again, communicating, because I'm like, I feel this shift. I don't fully understand it. And he prepared a home for me. He prepared a house for me that I was finally ready to step into in exactly the time that I was ready to step into. I would not have been able to do it 2 years prior. I just couldn't. But he prepared my character enough. He prepared my finances enough. He prepared me to be dependent on him enough to sustain it, to where it was bigger than me still, but it was still within the scope of what I can actually handle.
Right.
But if I was like, oh, now I quote quote own the salon, and so I gotta be in this car, I gotta be in this house, I gotta do these things, I wouldn't have been ready for that my first year of ownership. That would have been dumb. But he said, now you're ready. Now you can do this.
Yeah.
And I can trust you with it. But it would have genuinely been a curse if I would have done it
out of season. Yeah. So I think even asking God to give you peace about your process.
Yes.
Because I think, with social media, we're exposed to things in a way that I wasn't even exposed to things when I say, like, I was doing hair in the 90s. Yeah. So social media was not a thing. But I think now there's just this rush energy, and we all see what somebody else has, and we think that we need to be there, or we want to be there. And I think that's where we have to close our eyes to those things, because that's not our path and that's not our process. And you would rather have fruit that remains than to have some premature fruit that's bitter. It's just like what's the purpose of having that? And so I wholeheartedly agree. Like, we just have to be wherever we're at, be there, because I'd rather be there and be able to sustain it than to have it for a short little and be like, well, what happened? Yeah. And so it's almost like, I'd be like, God, I don't want it if you ain't giving it.
Please. I will be uncomfortable here for a second, then be uncomfortable for 10 years. Like, I would much rather, I don't want it if it ain't from you.
Yeah. And it's so easy to see what somebody else is doing and want that. Yeah. And I think that's a natural thing.
So good.
I think it's a natural thing. But I think that's where, we have to, so God, help me to refocus and get back to whatever you said, and help me to be patient with the process that you have me in. And if you can do that within yourself, or if you can even have somebody who mentors you or holds you accountable to check whatever it is that you desire, like, check that at the front door and recognize like everything will come in its time. And if you can, we always say it always
works out.
It always works out.
Oh my goodness.
When I say it always, you have to trust that it always works out. And when you get there, wherever you are, whatever season you're in, you'll be fine. But I think it also requires you to have the right people around you, because, that also too can help. It can help you, or it can deter you. It can have you on the wrong path, or it can have you on the proper path. And so, even when we just shifting back to mentorship, we didn't talk about this in the other episode, but it was almost like when you were torn with whether or not you were going to go down the path of psychology, like for real, or stay at the salon, like, even when you came to me, everything in me wants you to be here. Yeah. I want you right here because it does benefit me. It does benefit the salon. But I had to even release that. I'm like, girl, I don't know what he's saying to you. Yeah. And I want you to follow your peace in your process and whatever your timing is. And if he's saying it's time for you to shift and go full time into psychology, I trust that, because I trust that whatever he has for me is going to be in my time as well. Yep. And so it wasn't necessarily hard for me to say to you, because that's how I live. Peace is my compass. If I don't have peace, I am in the wrong place. Yes. Right?
It doesn't mean that there's no discomfort when you have peace. It just means that he gives you a peace to make the decision no matter what.
Absolutely.
No matter what. And I think that because you trusted him, it made me trust you.
Mm-hmm.
You demonstrated that I can trust you because you did not manipulate me to make a decision for your benefit.
Right.
And if you don't have somebody who kind of gives you the opportunity and or the option to rely on God's word and God's word alone without them influencing your decision, they might not be the right person. That's based on the wisdom that I feel like I have now.
Mm-hmm.
is that I was able to make an informed decision because it wasn't contingent on whether or not I disappoint Essence.
Because
It was only contingent on, is this what God said for me? That was it.
And I could have subliminally been like, well, you're such a good hairstylist. Like, I didn't say nothing. I was like, I was just like, listen.
She literally was like, talk to him. Do you have peace or not? I was like, and sometimes you want to feel wanted. You want to feel needed. You want to, it's not that you didn't make me feel those things, but it was just like, talk to him. You took the responsibility off of your hands. And then you made me submit that feeling, that frustration, that resistance, that confusion to God and God alone. And so it was like, I can suggest what might be best, but now you help me you put into me as a leader. Don't ever manipulate somebody's ability to hear God's peace or feel God's peace based on my own desire. Go to him first. And then whatever he says, you're going to go with either way.
Right.
So I get to nurture if you're here, but if you're not, now I have so much peace that it did not impact our relationship. Now I'm not building mud everywhere else. It's like, I have a bridge still. So even if I parted ways, we didn't end on bad terms. Just God told you to do something. You just did what he said.
Right.
So
and
now it ain't got nothing else to do with me. I don't have to feel bad. I don't have to feel bitter. I have peace because you have peace.
Yeah. And I think, coming from a perspective of a salon owner, it's like, thinking about your top stylist.
Yeah.
Your top stylist is like, I'm torn and I think I might need to go in a different direction. And so I think even when we're talking about growing as leaders, I think that it's really just being open to however God wants to move. And I think that that's just, just the trust, because, it required faith.
Yeah.
To even say that and to stand in that. And it wasn't like you came back the next day with an answer.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know remember how long it was, but it may have even been a few weeks where you
it
was just
was like a grueling couple of months.
A month? Okay.
Hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt. Even when I did make the decision, because I had to go back and forth. I'm like, okay, God, please make it clear. Please make it clear. I had to mourn what I thought I was supposed to be doing. I didn't know what it was going to require for me to be a stylist whatsoever. Full time. Right. And to then re-identify myself as a stylist and a creative when I'd been told and valued in being an academic. I had to it was a whole shift. So then it was like, okay, God, I just want to be in agreement with whatever you're saying, even though my body is completely like not in agreement and I was confused. I had peace with the decision, but I had to allow God to work out in me all the things that I had come into agreement with out of time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a paradigm shift of what you thought was going to be versus what he's saying. And, yes, I feel like all of those things, we got to give to grow.
Yeah.
We got to trust to grow. We have to be in a place that we can receive and that we're going to be accountable. Yeah. We have to be self-aware in order to grow. And so you might have to just take some time to ask yourself, okay, is where I'm at right now where I feel like I'm supposed to be? And if it's not, what areas of my life do I need to become aware of that I can grow? Because again, I think sometimes we can look at the practical things. It's like, yeah, I know I need to get better with my hairstyling, but there are so many other areas that we can evolve and grow in. And if you start focusing on those things, even in your personal life, it's going to trickle over.
I think that kind of segues into like, maybe, we're coming toward the end of this episode, but I would highly and thoroughly encourage you, if you need to heal, if you need therapy is, it's beautiful now because there's so many people who are like encouraging and sharing their journeys and everything, when there was definitely a time that it was more taboo because, oh, you crazy, oh, you this. No, we have to get into a space where somebody can just help us to paint a picture of what has transpired in our lives, just to help pick out those pieces and say, if we just focus on this thing right now and come back into agreement with the person that we need to be. It's not that they're telling you who you're supposed to be. It is what happened to you that informed who you are now that we get to just reshift the perspective on. That's literally it. It's a real beautiful invitation to, how do I get back to my core self, my authentic self, my true self, so that I can become a better leader. But if you're informed by trauma along the entire journey, you're going to operate only from that space. And that's not fair to you or to the people that you're called to serve. And so yes, we can do all of those things, but if you don't heal, it's still going to seep back into everything else that you do. It's going to seep right back into it.
Yeah.
So find part of doing that work and being accountable and wanting to grow. Find a therapist. Find a therapist, and you're going to have to shop around. It's like dating. I mean, I haven't dated for a really long time. Like, I've been married for a grip of time now. But I imagine that it's like dating. You have to find a good fit. The first person that, you come across may not be a good fit. But if you do want to grow, if you take that growth seriously and you realize something's just not clicking, I'm being triggered by certain things, you're becoming more self-aware. Inviting that space of therapy to somebody who gets paid to hear you and not give their opinion on the circumstance, but like really give you valuable feedback on how something has just informed your decision making. I think it'll be super, super valuable. I really do.
I agree, because so much of our growth is self-sabotage. Our potential growth is self-sabotage. And if we can do that work, and we're saying that because we did it.
Yes.
And still be doing it.
And
okay.
And still do it.
And still do it.
There are new things that are going to come up in every single season. But I'm like, if I eliminate some of those things, even if you can't afford therapy, find somebody safe enough to share with, to be able to, not for them to diagnose you, not for them to, help you process all the things. But if like, I need to share this just because that's what God is leading me to do, then help to bring the right people in your life to be able to do that with. I promise you it will change everything and put you in the best position to grow.
That's it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Love it.
Well, we want to see you all grow.
Yeah.
We want to see you all become the rare one, individually and collectively. And so when you do the work, it's only gonna benefit everything around you. A lot of times we do the work for ourselves, but it impacts everything.
It's always for someone.
And it has the potential to break generational curses within your family. And, a lot of times the ones who are breaking it is the first ones to pioneer it. And it is challenging. But just know that you got sisters.
You do. You have support.
We are here. And so we thank you for joining us on this podcast about growing as a stylist. And we hope to see you next week.
Yep. Love y'all.
Peace.
Hey, Rare Stylist, if you are looking to grow in business and you know you need help, we want to help you. Log on to rareessenceacademy.com/coaching if you are ready and serious about growing in business.